Well, it's been a really strange year so far this year. Last year, when war was declared, we thought things were going to happen at home here straight away. But very little has changed for my life here in rural Kent, except of course for the introduction of rationing on the 8th of January this year. That was a bit of a shock, but we've learnt to get used to having less sugar, less meat, less bacon and less of the cooking fats that we use to bake with and fry with. The children, of course, were all evacuated last year, but many of them are home here now. And with this lovely weather, flaming June, it really is so lovely and warm, then it's a good time for the family to all get together and enjoy a lovely spread outdoors if the weather stays fine like this, or if it pours with rain, all the family can get together now indoors and enjoy sitting round the tea table together. Now each week I, without fail, get my Woman's Weekly magazine, and in it Cecile, the Cookery editor, always puts a really good recipe that I like to try out at home. So today I'm going to be trying out her cheesecake recipe. It looks really good. First of all, I need to make some pastry, and for this I'm going to use 8 ounces of plain flour. Now this will make quite a bit of pastry, but I'm going to make a flan with the rest of it. It's always better to bake more than one thing at one time. It does keep the fuel costs down in the kitchen, using the most that you can of your oven. Pop this into a sieve and give it a good sift into a bowl. Also sift with it 1 level teaspoon of baking powder, one teaspoon of baking powder, getting as much air into your flour as possible. This of course will make a really light pastry for your delicious cheesecakes. I'm now going to add some margarine, and I'm using 4 ounces. Now you could use a little more if you have it available. We're so lucky at the moment that margarine, unlike our butter, is not rationed, although I have heard a nasty rumour that it may be rationed next month. So ladies, do make the most of your margarine. Blend the margarine into the flour and then add some water to make a stiff paste. I love using my pastry blender. It always ensures that the margarine is mixed very well within the flour, yet still incorporating the air that you would get if you were rubbing the fat into the flour with your fingertips. And of course it saves your fingers getting all greasy and messy. It's still hard work though, and can take its toll on wrists that have been working hard in the Dig for Victory garden. Let's move those scales, they're rather noisy. And there we've got some nicely blended margarine, flour and baking powder ready to add the water. Make sure you add as cold as water as possible. I'm going to start off with about 6 tablespoons. and see how that works. Back to the pastry blender. I think just a little more. Don't want to make it too wet. And there. It's all coming together to make a lovely short pastry for the base of our cheesecakes. Now take your paste and roll it out to line either some small patty tins like I'm doing, or if you want to make a large cheesecake, line a pie dish. And there, we're ready to fill them. Now let's sort that filling out, shall we? Well, I've popped in a bowl 2 ounces of margarine, and I'm going to beat this till it's like a cream. Now that's the 2 ounces of margarine beaten till it's really creamy. I'm going to put that by for a minute and weigh out some dry ingredients. So first of all, I'm going to pop 2 ounces of plain flour in my sieve. Now you can of course use self-raising flour if you have this in your pantry, but you will need to remember that you don't need the baking powder. I'm also going to pop in with the flour half a level teaspoon of baking powder, and of course you wouldn't use that, as I was saying, if you're using self-raising flour. Put that in with the flour, and we're going to sieve that onto a plate while we get the other ingredients ready as well. I'm also going to add to this dry ingredient 1 ounce of ground rice. So pop that in with the flour and baking powder and give them a little mix together, and then again we're going to put that to the side. And the next job I'm going to do is whisk an egg. Now I'm very lucky, I've always got an excellent supply of fresh eggs through keeping my own hens. I'm going to wash the eggshell later, and I'll use that to try and keep the slugs off my Dig for Victory garden. They're causing havoc with my cabbages at the moment. So give that egg a really good whisk, and now we're going to go back to our creamed margarine. Of course, you could always use butter instead of margarine if it was a very special occasion. Now I'm going to add the flour, ground rice and baking powder dry mix alternatively, gradually with the whisked egg. So add about a tablespoon of flour mix first, mix it in well, and then a little of your whisked egg. If you do feel it looks like it could curdle, make sure you stop mixing the egg and pop in just a little bit more flour, and that should avoid any curdling. And we're going to keep doing this until we've used them all up. A little flour and a little more egg. Yes, eggs. But I've heard that eggs are getting so scarce in the towns that they're starting to queue for them, and of course the price of them has really rocketed sky high. So cleaning out the poultry houses means nothing to the fact that I've always got a good supply of lovely fresh eggs. Now there goes the last of the whisked egg. And then the last of the flour, ground rice and baking powder mixture. Now we're nearly there. Just a few more ingredients to mix. Now of course the best sweetener we have is our dried fruit, and I'm so glad that they've controlled the prices of that, because that's meant that it's still affordable. So I'm going to add 3 ounces of sultanas to the mixture. Wash your sultanas, pick them over, dry them, and then they're ready to pop in. So 3 ounces of sultanas, mix them in too, but of course we still need a little bit more sweetening, and with the sugar ration having gone down from 12 ounces to 8 ounces last month, the lovely month of May, I am really trying to not waste my sugar when I can use other alternatives. So today, instead of using a little sugar, I'm going to use some golden syrup. I've warmed it already. A dessert spoonful of golden syrup will finish off the sweetening really nicely and still mean that there's some sugar to put in our cup of tea. There's that dessert spoon. Oops, getting myself tied in knots of golden syrup. Pop that in. And now for flavouring, I'm going to add a little nutmeg. But if you have oranges or a lemon, if you can afford them, then you can always grate a little bit of rind very finely. But I'm just going to pop in a pinch of nutmeg with the golden syrup and finish stirring that all together. And there's your filling ready to put onto the pastry cases that you've already made. But before that, I'm going to put a thin layer of marmalade on the bottom of each pastry case. Now, you could use any of your homemade jams, but I always find that apricot jam is so much nicer in tarts and cakes than other jams. So pop in your marmalade, smooth it round the pastry cases with a spoon, and then we're ready to put the topping over the top. So there we are with our marmalade, and now take spoonfuls of your mixture and smooth it out with a knife or a spoon over the top. Try to make sure you cover your marmalade or jam, and there they are, ready to go into a hot oven. Now if you're making small cheesecakes like I have, about 20 minutes in a hot oven, but if you're making a bigger plated large cheesecake, then that could take up to 30 minutes. So I'm going to pop these in now. They smell delicious. Ooh. Here we have some lovely cheesecakes for tea. Thank you, Cecile and Woman's Weekly.